Hello and welcome to the Oddschecker betting show. This is the Irish Champions Weekend preview, and I am your host, George Elek, and I'm joined today by two expert guests. As ever, we have Oddschecker's very own tipster, Andy Holding here. But coming over to us from the over the Irish Sea to our man on the ground over there, Tony Keenan, here as well to talk us through the racing. We're going to rattle through Saturday's card, well, in the knowledge that a few people here will be watching or listening to this after it's already taken place. So we'll be doing that, a whistle-stop tour through the group racing on Saturday, and then really get stuck into the stuff on Sunday as well. So if you are tuning into this on Sunday or on Saturday evening, then you can probably skip through those first few races and find out a way to do so. But Tony, I'm going to come to you first quickly before we get into the race. We've got loads to get through, so we're not going to spend too long on this. Not too much small talk between the three of us. But you are over there. I know you're not particularly local to either Leopardstown or the Curragh, but what are we expecting in terms of the weather? Is there any rain forecast? Should we be taking any of that into account when looking for our selections ahead of the 2 days racing?
Yeah, well, usually for a meeting like this, George, I'd be looking to bet maybe midweek anti-post, but I've done absolutely nothing this week because the weather was so really unpredictable. They were predicting anywhere between 10 and 25 mils, but I'd say about 7 or 8 of that has materialised, and the ground is kind of set as it is now at the moment. There doesn't seem to be any rain forecast, so we're basically looking at traditional. I know it's not summer, but it is going to be summer, fast, good to firm ground at both tracks. So yeah, it's probably the form from the summer is going to carry through.
Always good. Makes it a bit easier when that's the case, although maybe not as much, not as many ricks for us to get tucked into this at this stage, or as you say, earlier in the week. We're going to get into the racing now, and as I say, we're going to go through the group racing on both days very quickly through Leopardstown. So we'll be starting with the Group 2, the 110, and then through to the Paddy Power Stakes. And in that 110 now, the KPMG Champions Juvenile, we have Maritime Wings, the 5-2 favourite. I should say before I get into the racing, as I normally do, I think it's the first time I've forgotten in about 3 years. Before we get into the racing, do download the Oddschecker app, because we're going to be talking in terms of the best prices here. You're going to get the best offers, the best place terms, free bets, and everything else on there as well. So do download the app. It's also the place where you can find Andy's tips before anywhere else, 9 a.m. on the morning of the racing, straight up onto the app. So have to tick that one off before we get in there. Managed to just about remember and save my skin with the bosses. But as I say, into now the 110, the first race we're going to be covering at Leopardstown on Saturday. And Maritime Wings is the 5-2 favourite ahead of Absolute Ruler 9-2. Once Upon a River and Buckaroo 8-1 alongside Atomic Jones, the same price. Stone Age, a bit of money this morning, 10-1, 14-1 bar. Now, guys, because we've got about 9 races to get through and we don't want to stay here for a few hours, no harm in saying no fancies for these races tomorrow. But Andy, coming to you first, how did you see this one unfolding?
Yeah, I didn't think it was a particularly strong race. Having looked at it in some depth, Maritime Wings, I think Tony will probably agree, sets the standard. He's chased home Point Lonsdale twice, in the backside of Aidan O'Brien's charge twice. He's been readily brushed aside by what is obviously a very good colt. The one thing you couldn't fault him with is his tenacious attitude. He's run hard all the way to the line. He's just been outpointed fair and square. I think he'll stay the trip, no problem. And obviously, you've got to respect a horse, from a stable in really good order. I think he lacks a little bit of brilliance, and it wouldn't surprise me if there's something in here that maybe just might be able to improve beyond him, because I think he's a fairly tightish price, certainly based on his time figures. I'm quite surprised in some respects that Ger Lyons, or more predominantly Colin Keane, has chosen to ride Atomic Jones, who was well fancied on debut and did well to defy stall 10, which is not easy to do on the round track when you're stuck out on the wing. But it was a little bit of a wild finish. The time wasn't very good. They finished in a heap. And my overriding impression of that maiden at the Curragh was that he was just okay. Obviously, I think he's the type to improve, and he's gone and bagged a good draw in stall 1. So you've got to respect Atomic Jones. But I do think Ger Lyons has got a very strong runner here in the shape of Once Upon a River, who's had the benefit of 2 runs. He was third on debut and promising at that. And then he went to Roscommon the other day. Well, so the other day, 74 days ago, it's a little while now. But he clocked a very fast time. And just looking at my numbers, he comes out top based on that run. So I wish I could show Colin Keane the time figures that we've got, because there's no way he'd be choosing Atomic Jones if he believed in time figures. And he looks like I say, a type that I think he'll improve. He's got a lovely long stride on him. He's quite flashy. He's got a good cruising speed. So yeah, I think Jer's got a very strong hand here, and maybe Gary Carroll could be the beneficiary of Colin Keane riding what supposedly is the stable #1 in Atomic Giant. So at the prices, I'd be going Once Upon a River.
Once Upon a River, pretty much 8-1 across the board as it stands at the moment. Tony, how are you seeing it?
Okay, George, so this is kind of my strongest race of the weekend, probably definitely tomorrow anyway. So I will probably say a little bit about this, maybe cut the other ones a bit shorter. I think the Galway maiden form here of Buckaroo and Stone Age is well overpriced. I'd be quite keen to take on Maritime Wings. As Andy said there, he's only okay on the clock. And I also think he's got a little bit of a suspect attitude. I thought he travelled much better than Point Lonsdale the last day and started hanging in behind him when the going got tough. Now, I know Point Lonsdale is potentially a top class horse, but I just think there's something going to improve past Maritime Wings here. So Buckaroo would be the main one, but I wouldn't put anyone off having a few quid on Stone Age either. Buckaroo's had 2 runs at, to me, tracks that wouldn't suit him at all, Killarney and Galway. He's a big galloping type of horse, and those tight tracks really wouldn't suit. The bend didn't really suit him in Killarney, where he's a massive eye catcher. Behind 2 horses that haven't run since, but both of those are apparently very well regarded. I'd say his closing split on there was excellent. And then at Galway, he's actually done some really fast closing splits. I think he's done the fastest last 2 furlongs on the whole card. And it wasn't a dawdle of a race. It was just himself and Stone Age pulling clear of a horse at Dermot Wells that has run quite well since. I think the one that went clear of the Tour by 7 lengths. It was all coming inside the last furlong and a half. There were other good races on the card that day. Like there was a decent mile maiden. There was a Premier mile and a half handicap. Like for a 2-year-old who's essentially going to be a Derby horse in time to be doing the fastest last 2 furlongs, to me, is hugely impressive. And I think he's going to get in here, go onto this more galloping track. And I think he should be a hell of a lot shorter. And that said, I would respect the second Stone Age. I respect the fact that Aidan O'Brien is deciding he's going to have another go. And double figures about him is fine as well. But that would be my way into it here. I get 100% what Andy's saying. There's an awful lot of these that are maybe coming off the one win that haven't really clocked any great times. Like Atomic Jones's race was a little bit of a walk. And a very messy race. Point Gellibrand really should have won that. And nothing has really come out of that. But yeah, I'd be very happy backing Buckaroo at the current price and probably shorter and a small saver in Stone Age.
Yeah, Buckaroo also 8-1 pretty much across the board. And Stone Age, bit of money, as I said earlier, 10-1 best price as it stands. That's with Paddy's, Betfair Sportsbook and Bet Victor. So 4 there, really against the top 2 in the market. Well, I guess Once Upon a River, Buckaroo and Stone Age, the 3 with a bit of respect for Atomic Jones as well, between the 2 experts here. So now on to the 140, the Matron Stakes, the Fillies and Mares Group 1, and Mother Earth is the 6-4 favourite ahead of Pearls Galore at 15-2. Acanella 10-1, opponent plays 11-1, Champs-Élysées 12-1 alongside Pretty Gorgeous and Shale 14-1 bar, 13 runners it stands. Tony, I'll stick with you here. How do you see this one going? Mother Earth, the 6-4 favourite, sure to be popular with plenty.
Yeah, she's very deserving favourite. A lot of these races have been won by different horses this year. That it's been a very open division, the Filly and Mares male division. But she's won twice, and the other 3 races she's run, she's been the first 3. She has the best form. I'd say actually her best form is probably in Defeat, the run at Newmarket and the Falmouth with 10 in with alcohol free and Snowlamp in that form. Obviously worked out in the Sussex. So she's probably a pretty decent 6-4 shot. There's a lot of numbers in this, but there's a lot of listed Group 3 fillies. The one I think that might have a little bit of scope to improve to give her a race would be Pearls Galore. She has only really run one bad race since arriving in Ireland at the back end in Dundalk last year, off a break. Maybe it was surface that didn't suit her, but bar that, it's been excellent. She gave Champs-Élysées a bit of a race in Goran last year when she was only an experienced horse. This season she kicked on. Look, I wouldn't back her each way, because I think there's just a possibility she's a 7 furlong filly and she kind of travel into it and then will empty out into 5th. I think she is a little bit all or nothing at this trip, but I'm probably going to bet her. But I have massive respect for Mother Earth, and to be honest, not a lot of respect for a lot of the rest of them who I just don't think are up to this grade.
So respect there for Pearls Galore, the likely challenger for Mother Earth. Do you agree, Andy?
Yeah, it's hard to say anything negative about Mother Earth, isn't it? All her performances this season at Group 1 level have been of a very high standard. And she is, a genuine Group 1 filly, whereas Tony's already pointed out a lot of these are listed in Group 3. and that gulf between that kind of standard usually pans out in these kind of races. She's also got a very good draw as well. As we know, Leopardstown, short straight. It's a track where you need to be on the bunny, on the speed throughout. It's very difficult to come from the back, particularly in these races, where, let's face it, if you're a Group 3 listed horse, you're running down a Group 1 horse who's already got an advantage on, track position wise. If I was to nominate one like Tony has as an alternative to the favourite, it might well be Pretty Gorgeous, who's had a bit of a poor season considering she was one of the best juveniles last year. But I've gone back and watched all her runs, and looking at her profile, I think there's been one or two slight mitigating circumstances. The ground first time up was heavy when she was behind Empress Josephine. Again, the ground was bottomless in the Coronation when she wasn't beaten that far, and she was favoured that day. Don't forget she was centre favourite for the Coronation Stakes. The ground again, but probably been the other way around for her, really firm at Newmarket. And again, she didn't get beat too far by Mother Earth and a whole host of decent fillies that day in a genuine Group 1. And if you go back and watch her run last time out at Tipperary, I know Tony fancies Pearls Galore, but she got absolutely no run whatsoever around a very tight track. There was a big field, I think it was 15 odd runners, and she was trying to get through, muscle her way out, and she couldn't get a clear run. Once she did, it was only in the last 100 yards. She literally took off and hit the line really strong. So I think she's coming back to something like her best. And you've got to look at her career path this time around. Don't forget last year when she was a good juvenile, she started a season in July and worked her way through into the autumn period, and her form maintained all the way through to the back end of the season. So she might well just be an autumn filly, and she might just come to hand at this time of year. That's my theory anyway. But what I saw of her the last time at Tipperary, she's not a million miles away from coming back to something in and around her best. And I think something of her best might well be good enough for her to hit the first three here. Whether she's good enough to turn around and form with Mother Earth, I couldn't be sure. But at the prices, what we're looking at, 10, 12 to 1?
12 to 1, yeah.
12 to 1, yeah. That's not a bad price for a high-class filly who is surely better than what we've seen so far.
Yeah, you're not the only one thinking that, Andy. A Sea of Blue at the moment on oddschecker as short as 9 to 1 at the moment with William Hill, but that 12 to 1 is available with Bet Victor, Betfred, Boyle Sports, and Paramatch, a new addition to the oddschecker grids. On then to the third race we're covering on the Saturday. It is the Boomerang Mile, the Clipper Logistics Boomerang Mile, and Max Swinney is the 9 to 2 joint favourite alongside Maker of Kings. Njord is 15 to 2, Thunder Moon 8 to 1. Rev Rover 11 to 1, 12 to 1 Real Appeal with Snapperetera, and then 14 to 1 Bar. 14 run here, Andy. A couple of firms already going 4 places. It looks a pretty open race. How do you see it going?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think Maker of Kings is the obvious starting point, just because he's got an amazing body of work at this track. I think Tony would have seen this horse run quite a few times here at Leopardstown. He's probably about as reliable as a Swiss clock here, isn't he? He turns up every single time, leaves it out on the track. His time figures are always very, very healthy. He's actually top of our figures based on that run beyond Japan. A mile suits him really well, and he's got a reasonable draw and still 7 right in the middle of the pack. So I think if you're looking for what am I going to back in this race? If you're an each way punter, sort of 9 to 2. You're more than likely, based on his overall profile, he's going to give you a run and get your money back, and he might just go and pop his bib in front. That said, I do think there's another one in this race that's slightly overpriced. I don't like Max Swinney's chances based on, I think, mile on quick ground. I think he's going to find him out. He obviously won the Irish Guineas, but it was heavy and it very much playing to his strengths. But he's always looked a mile and a quarter, mile and a half horse, and then that's probably a fair assessment of him. And Jim Balls has gone through a wretched run since he was really hitting it out of the park in the middle of summer. His stats are 0 from 26 in the last fortnight, and he's gone 27 runners in 15 days without a winner, which is similar to Johnny Murto. I'll get onto him later on because he's got a fancy horse. He's looking a little bit alarming. So I actually think Gerline's other horse here, Georgeville, will go really well. Now, he's not a particularly sexy typing compared to some of these horses who've been running in Group 1s and Group 2s, but he did run exceptionally well here last time out behind Create Belief, Johnny Murto's star filly. It wasn't running a massively true gallop, just an even gallop. and he was last turning in. For him to finish second, given the way the race panned out, was a really good effort. Certainly suggested to me that he's improving since he's now gone to Jurt. He was a bit unlucky the time before in the Nasrallah handicap behind Masala when he went for a run up the rail and didn't get a clear run. So his last 2 runs at Leopardstown have been pretty eye-catching, to say the least, and he's available back at 20-1. And I don't think there's a great deal between a lot of this bunch, and there's 1 or 2 here that are disappointing. Fevro, Thunder Moon, Khartoum, Zajan. Not totally convinced that Real Appeal will get the trip. So I think the scope for backing something beyond the obvious here, and he'd appeal to me. George Villa has been one that could easily outrun his odds.
Great name. I'm afraid that 20-1 though, and his ancient history, 16-1 best price at the moment.
Still not bad. Yeah, that's still fair enough.
Happy to take it. The best, you're going to get 16-1, 4 places with Boyle Sports as it stands at the moment, as short as 12-1 elsewhere. Do you agree with that, Tony?
I'd agree that McSweeney is definitely worth taking on anyway. Yeah, it's just very straightforward on the ground, and like that. And there's another horse there, Snapper Terry, who's been great form on soft ground, but I presume this is going to find him out a little bit. Thunder Moon is another that's been fiercely disappointing. I don't know whether he was trying to hang into Ken Condon's horse Laws of Indices for trying to bite him in Deauville a couple of starts back, and then he's flopped completely the last time. I would agree with Andy that Maker Kings is very solid, and the other one I'd throw into the mix is Njord. I know he hasn't won this season, but I think he's in much better form than maybe his figures suggest. I think the Galway Mail was just a race that was run at such a crazy gallop, and he wasn't too far off. It's very difficult to win a big handicap of 110. I think his 3 runs sort of in and around that. The run behind Kinross at Haydock was an excellent effort. That form really worked out. Then he's come off a break and run well behind Order of Australia. He's in the frame in 2 or 3 Group 1 mile races since, and then again at Newbury last day behind Sacred. So I have it, but the 2 that I like were Njord and Maker Kings, and just because of a little bit of difference in the price, I'm going to go with Njord.
Njord 15-2, 365, and Hills both 4 places as well. There as short as 13-2 elsewhere, and Maker Kings getting a double nod from the 2 guys, 9-2 pretty much across the board. As I say, 4 places. So as Andy mentioned, back Master of Kings each way, and he hits the frame with those 4 places, you're only going to do in just a little bit of money, and then if he gets his nose in front, then you've got a nice little winner there too. On then to the Irish Champion Stakes, the big race of Saturday. We've got 4 runners, and St Mark's Basilica is currently 5-4 best price. That is with Boyle Sports. Tarnawa is 9-4, Poetic Flair 130, Patrick Sarsfield 33-1. And Andy, this might be only a 4-runner Group 1, but no shortage of quality.
No, it's a cracker, isn't it? The fact that Patrick Sarsfield, a genuine top-class horse in his own right, is the outside at 33-1 here, tells you what we need to know about the other 3. As I said before, Jim Bowles is also in struggling at the moment. Doesn't mean to say that that none of his can win. They can easily bounce back. As soon as you say he got out of form, they have a habit of biting in the backside with stats such as that. So I'll certainly be looking to see how Jim's horses run previously on the card just to give me some weight behind that argument. But as it stands, looking at Poetic Flair, he's had a fairly hard season, and allied to the fact that Jim's horses are just going through a quiet patch by his standards, it's enough to put me off and just lean towards the other 2. I'd favour Tarnawa here, based on the fact that she's had 2 spins around Leopardstown. I know it's just a little slight advantage I'm looking at here. St Mark's Basilica, brilliant as though he is, up to now he's gone on a straight track and right-handed. He's yet to run left-handed. He's yet to run at Leopardstown. Like I said, they're just little idiosyncrasies. Idiosyncrasies even. That sometimes you tend to overlook and not pay any attention to. And I think they're definitely worth highlighting in a race like this, where small margins I think might make the difference. But I really liked her on her debut this season. She come back and looked a real class filly. Her time figures from last season are exceptionally good, including the one when she won here. All roads lead to the Arc, and this looks a really good stepping stone towards that. And even though 1.5 miles, I think is probably her best trip. She's got plenty of pace for 1.25 miles. She's got a good cruising speed. So I'd probably take the filly to beat the 2-3-year-old Colts here.
Taking the filly there, Tarnawa 9-4, best price. That is with Bet365. Do you agree, Tony, that that's the value in this 4-runner race?
Yeah, broadly, I would agree. I think the bookies are missing a trick here. I think they need to have a little market up at what horse is leading after a furlong, because that's the most interesting thing in this race is going to be the pace. That's what everyone's talking about. Like Aidan O'Brien has kind of signposted this from 10 days out that he was only going to run St Mark's Basilica. We want a bit of a sprint for our horse. The rest of you can kind of, lump it really. And while he had numerous horses entered in the race, he's, just stuck with him. So, to me, the horse that probably isn't going to be suited with the slow pace is the mile or Poetic Flair, because I think that a slow pace just gets him very keen. He tends to over race, and he may not have anything left. I think you'll know pretty early in the race where you are with him. So, is Kevin Manning going to go forward in him? Maybe he will. I would like to see Colin Keane just grasp the nettle here. I know Curragh has been held up in all her recent races, but just kick on and send her on and don't set it up for St Mark's Basilica. I think her form is more solid than the other two. Poetic Flair was brilliant at Royal Ascot, but we haven't really seen that since. I know he ran Palace Pier close to last day, but Palace Pier wasn't fit to my mind, according to the trainer. St Mark's Basilica, French wins were fine. Sandon looks brilliant if you take it at face value, but I don't think either Adib or Mishriff were really aimed at that race. You've seen a different Mishriff since. But Tanara's form last year looks very, very solid. Beating Alpine Star in France when she didn't get the run of the race. Alpine Star was coming into that race, tying in with Peak Palace Pier, and then beating Magical at the Breeders' Cup. Magical was just off the back of winning this race. So it wouldn't be a strong opinion, because I think there's a strong possibility this just develops into a 2 furlong sprint, and I think St Mark's Basilica is best equipped for that. But at the prices, I'd take a chance that Tanara maybe will go up and make it a little bit of a test. And I do think she's just got marginally the best form.
Tanawa there, 9-4, getting the double thumbs up from Tony and from Andy. 9-4, that is with Bet365 as short as 13-8 in places as well. So that 9-4 may not last too long. So do try and snap it up if you're quick and it's still there the time that you're listening. Quickly, we'll just cover the Group 3, the Paddy Power Stakes, the 3:15 at Leopardstown on Saturday before we move on to the Curragh for the Sunday of Irish Champions Weekend. And Earlswood is the 9-4 favourite. Innisfree 3-1. Salamarak is 5-1. Thunder Kiss 8-1. For Barents 10-1. Leo de Fury 12-1. 20-1 bar. 9 runners. Tony, come to you first here.
Yeah, again, not a massively strong opinion. I would be against Innisfree. I know a lot of people are saying it was an eye-catching effort in the Curragh, but it was a really slow pace, and I thought his head was in the air a little bit like a horse feeling it. Like he has been a horse that's been off for a full season and half of this season as well. So I'd wonder, is there some underlying issue with him? I would like to take him on. I accept what Andy's saying about the stable form of Johnny Mortis. He's the second person to say that to me this morning, how are Johnny Mortis going. The only thing I would say about that is he had a couple of horses run really well at Cork there during the week that were coming out of the barrier trials in maidens. To me, they ran perfectly well. And to me, also, this meeting is the big game. The racing over the last fortnight has been very moderate. I think he's keeping a lot of his best horses back for this. And Earlswood is one of those that he did it really nicely the last day. Looking back at his Irish Derby run, like he was in a similar position to the horse's favourite for the Ledger, Hurricane Lane, and it was quite difficult to come from off the pace. There was a fair run out of Hurricane Lane to do that. I think Earlswood, well, I'm not saying he would have won or anything. I think he would have been a clear third if he got a clear passage up the lane. That would have been a fair effort. So yeah, I think he's pretty solid. I wouldn't be shouting about him at the price. The one horse I think this worth also mentioned there is Thunder Kiss. I have a feeling she didn't run her race down in Cork. I think we'll be talking about this later because, the favourite of one of the short price horses for the Blandford on Sunday, Le Petit Coco ties in with her. I think she might be overrated off the back of that. There might be a better effort in Thunder Kiss here than what she showed in Cork.
Might be a better effort there, but Earlswood getting a nod. Thunder Kiss 8-1 across the board. Earlswood, as I say, the 9-4 favourite. Andy?
I think the most intriguing run in this race, without a shadow of doubt, from my perspective anyway, is Salamarak. He's made a bit of a fool of me so far this season. Having me flagged him up as a Derby horse when he won at Leopardstown on the day that Bolshoi Bally won, and I was getting really quite excited about his Derby prospects because I think it's been well documented that Salamarak's back end work was much better than Bolshoi Ballet, and it was one of those things I think, well, either Bolshoi Ballet is not a Derby horse or Salamarak is miles better than what Aidan O'Brien thinks. As it panned out in the Derby itself, obviously Bolshoi Ballet kind of like semi-backed up that view. And Salamrock ran a Herculean race at Ascot. He had top weight in the King George handicap. He had to circumnavigate the field. He was running everything down at the finish. Look, he was just the best horse in the race. And then they wouldn't say as an afterthought. They thought, well, there's one Group 1 Derby left. We'll run him in the French version. And of course, the ground went soft, heavy in places or whatever it was. And for a horse who's got a daisy cutting action, he just didn't handle it, and he ended up finishing last. It was a bit of a waste of a bullet. He's had a break since, and interesting, he's now gone to Jose O'Brien. Not sure how much he's going to improve from Aidan O'Brien to Jose O'Brien, but just maybe the change of scenery just might have, sparked some kind of different incentive in the horse. Who knows? We just don't know. But I can't get that out of my head. That day when he won here at Leopardstown back in May, I think it was back in May. He was so good on the iron, and he's like I say, his back in sectionals were frightening. He's got an amazing turn of foot. He's just a horse of very high quality, and he's one of the only field course winners in the lineup, which is what I like. So yeah, I'd just prefer him at the prices. As I said with the Earlswood thing, at 7-4, I'd let him win with the Johnny Mercer horses until they prove me otherwise, running better than what they have been. I'm not prepared to take a chance at 7-4, and he's never won over a mile and a half, even though he looks as though he should get it standing on his head, and his Irish Derby run wasn't too bad. But yeah, Salamrock for me. Was it 5 to 1?
5 to 1, 365. I mean, no one's asking you to take 7-4 about Earlswood. That's shorter than anywhere. Andy, 9-4 best price.
Sorry, it's not. Yeah, I was looking at the graph I've got on the side of me here. He's a bit of he's going to become a little bit of a cliff horse, I think, for me with Salamrock. But I'll give you one more go. I think this is the time to catch him. First run for New Yard, back to Leopardstown, back on good ground. Let's see the real Salamrock.
All right, Andy, I'll hold your hand again as we jump off the Salamrock cliff. We go again. Might be the last time. That is the end of our Saturday Leopardstown preview. So if you are listening to this on Saturday evening or Sunday morning, you can stop scrubbing now and you can press play, because this is time for the Sunday at the Curragh. We'll be previewing now. We're recording this at about 12:30 on Friday. So 48-hour decks are in. Markets have just about reformed. As is always the case, we try and get this out as soon as possible after final decks, and that can mean that the markets are pretty volatile. So apologies if some of these prices are gone by the time you're listening, but fingers crossed the insight that the guys provide is still valuable. We are going to go through the group races again. So we're going to start with the Blandford Stakes. Tony, I have a feeling you've got something to say there, so we'll come to you first in a second. Then into the Flying Five, and then the Moyglare Stakes, followed by the Vincent O'Brien National Stakes, then into the Irish St Leger, and that is where the preview will finish. So starting with the Blandford here, we've got Love is the 11 to 10 favourite ahead of Thundering Knights at 3 to 1. Le Petit Coco is 4 to 1. Cayenne Pepper 7 to 1, and then 25 to 1 Bar. Now the puncher in me looking at this, when you got 4 and then 25 to 1 Bar and then 9 on a race. What am I backing each way, Tony?
Number 2, Thundering Knights, I would say. I'd be quite happy with that. God, I don't think anyone was in Ballydoyle was sitting back in January and February and thinking they were going to be running Love in a Blandford Stakes. Anyway, like this is really a bad sign of horse season to my mind. I just don't like the way she's going in her races the last twice. She was brilliant last season, but I think we were always open to the possibility last season that she was beating some really moderate fillies in the likes of Ennis Diamond and these type of horses. And I think that has proven to be the case this year. As a 2-year-old, I got her wrong basically every start as a 2-year-old, because I had in my head that she was a little bit, had a little bit of temperament and head carriage and things like that. And I think that started to creep back into her races. In the King George, she was cocking the jaw a little bit and looking to hang to the rail. It's the same in York the last day. And also starting to look a little bit slow. I think if anything, she's a 1.5 filly at this stage. I would be very keen to take her on. I've kind of given Le Petit Coco a bit of a knock there as well in the previous thing. I just don't think that Ger Lyons' filly ran to form there. And I also think with Le Petit Coco, she's improved for going up and trip on soft ground. I think the race that's really going to be suitable for her is the British Champions Day filly and mare turf on soft ground. Would be her job. So I'm left with Thundering Knights, who is a much improved filly, who is excellent at the Curragh around 9 and 10 furlongs. Beat Santa Barbara here 2 starts back, that form worked out well. Santa Barbara's gone on to America. I think the sectional show that they were, well better than the third horse, and that she's just. Thunder Knights was only second to Cayenne Pepper in this race last year. She's just a much better filly than her this time around. French run the last day was, you could argue, maybe a little bit disappointing, but I think the intention was to give her a break after the Curragh because she had been to America and run back quite quickly, and I think she's going to finish out the season well, and I'd be very happy with her now at 3-1.
3-1, Thundering Knights, Paddy's, Hills, Betfair Sportsbook, Novibet, they're all going 3-1 for Thundering Knights. Negatives there for the Favourite Love and for the Petite Coco. And as I say, 9 runners, 25-1 bar the 4. I know backing each way shots at 3-1 might not be everyone's cup of tea, but this time I would make an exception if I were you. Andy, how are you seeing this?
Yeah, I'd be quite keen on laying love at that price, in and around the 11 to 10 and even money mark. I think you've got 2 fillies, strong fillies running for you. One that we don't really know what the ceiling of her improvements is in the shape of Le Petit Coco, and we've got a solid C&D winner who loves the Curragh in the shape of Thundering Knights, as Tony's already alluded to. I'm a big fan of Thundering Knights, always have been. She's made me a few quid over the last year or two, based on her time figures. And she's very much punched above her weight on more than 1 or 2 occasions here at this track. I actually was a little bit disappointed with her last time out. I thought she had every chance from over 2 out, and she just didn't show that stamina, brilliance, tenacity that she normally does. I mean, she's run well. I mean, look, she's third in a Group 1 for crying out loud. I mean, it wasn't a disaster by any stretch of the imagination, but I thought she might win the last time, and it, like I say, just probably not for one reason, right on the money. But look, back to the Curragh, she's likely to bring her A game back to the table. But I probably would go the other way with Le Petit Coco. I think 4-1's not a bad price for her. They can ride her pretty much every way they want, because she's gone and bagged pole position, as it were, on the round track at the Curragh. Still one is worth its weight in gold. To hug that inside rail and to save ground, and to get yourself into the home straight round the inside, not having to go round horses is worth a couple of lengths. And I think with fine margins in a race like this, that could make the difference. Her number last time out at Cork was very, very good. So 1 or 2 might not have turned up, as Tony alluded to. I certainly take that on board. But the numbers, the sectionals, everything about that race suggested she's a filly going places. So yeah, at 4-1, I'd probably go with her each way, because that's probably not quite so criminal as going with the 3-1 each way as the Thundering Knights.
And you don't pretend you're any better than me.
I'm only slightly trying to justify by tipping something a point bigger.
Just chuck them all in each way doubles, everything else in the day, and you'll be fine. The Petite Coco 4-1. That is standout price at the moment with William Hill, 100 to 30 and 3-1 elsewhere. So that 4-1 may not last too long, but Hills are shortest on Love. They go even money about Love. On then to the second race, the Flying 5, where Winter Power is the 9-4 favourite ahead of Glass Slippers at 3-1. I mean, this is another absolute each way dream. You've got Glass Slippers 3-1, Dragon Symbol 7-2, and then 11-1 the rest. 11-1 Muniesta, Gustavus Western 14s, Rohan 14s, Romantic Proposal 18s. So, Andy, what am I putting my each way double with?
Hopefully I've got one for you here, and who knows, on Sunday 1 or 2 bookmakers might be generous and offer 4 places. Look, there's going to be a ton of pace, and there always is in 5 furlong sprints anyway. But with Winter Power in the race, as we saw at York, there's going to be no quarter asked or given. The only thing I would say with Winter Power, she's very much proven at York. Flat track where she can get away from horses really does suit. And the only time she's been slightly disappointing is a stiffer track like Ascot, for instance, when she's taken on, and softened up a little bit with all the horses around. It's probably not so easy to get away and have that uncontested lead that she was afforded on the Naysmire. And you've got the likes of Strong Johnson, Dragon Symbol, significantly frenetic, to name but a few, that are all going to be chipping away. So I think there could be a pace meltdown here, and you want something that's got the cruising speed just to hold its position in behind, but then stays really well. And there's one horse here that just absolutely jumps off the page to me, and that's Muniesta. Big fan of Jack Davidson's filly. I think he's handled her incredibly well. She's kind of flew under the radar a little bit, to be perfectly honest. And she caught everyone unawares last time when she beat Gustavus Western, but The numbers were incredibly good. I actually backed Gustavus Western next time out off the back of that, and he franked the form. Her only blip on her dance card is when they tried her out in the Group 1 at Royal Ascot. 6 furlongs on heavy ground. Proved her undoing, but I mean, she's run an amazing race. I mean, she's only beaten 7 lengths, 6 of the 15, in the context of probably what her skill set is and what she did on the day. That was probably close to something like her very best under those conditions that day. She loves the Curragh. And she, like I say, she's got a great cruising speed, turn of foot. She won't mind the ground whichever way. She's been saved just specifically for the race. Comes there fresh. She's got a good draw right in the middle of the pack. She's right behind Winter Power. She's drawn in 4. She's drawn in still 6 Minister. I'm all over her each way. I can't envisage her not running a massive race come Sunday.
Well, one firm's already gone 4 places, William Hill, but they are shortest price on Minister at the moment at 9-1. You can get 11-1 with Paddy's Betfair Sportsbook and Unibet as it stands, all 3 places at the moment. I'm sure that will change in the coming days. Tony, how are you seeing this?
I'm going to reach a similar conclusion to Andy, but I'll put a bit of flesh on maybe some of the other ones as well. There's not a massive negative with Winter Power, though I think there's a possibility that it's a York horse. Although the next couple in the market, I'd be very keen to take them on. Glass Slippers won this last year. Compared to this year's running, they're not in the same class at all. She beat a couple of horses that would be sent off 33s and 40s for this race, and that's what they've been sent off for the kind of King Stands and the Nuntorps this year. She's kind of a false price because she's coming back, and it's the same race over again, would be my understanding. But I know she's run well at Goodwood, but Suez has run over her, really. And I think the sprint division this season just looks that much hotter. So I'd be quite keen to take her on. I think she's a fairly bad price. Then you've got Dragon Symbol. I would say there's a fair chance he's going to go over the top now in the next start or two, and hopefully it'll be Sunday. I also think he's a bit of a 6 horse. I think he was very hard work with York. He travelled okay at Goodwood over this trip, but at York it looked hard work. So I would say he's had a very, very busy campaign. Rohan's another one there that it looks, trip would be a little bit sharp from. Munista would be my main one too. She, I think Andy's explained it very well. I think she is a little bit under the radar there. Her run in the Commonwealth Cup, you're saying, oh God, she's 6, she's beaten nearly the guts of 8 lengths. But the Commonwealth Cup is a funny race because it's the only Group 1 3-year-old only sprint. And horses that are kind of 5 furlong horses like her and Sueza and maybe the odd 7 furlong horse, the connections kind of feel obliged to run it, even if they're not really suited to be 6 furlongs. And I think that's what happened with her. And I thought she powered through it and just didn't see it out. And we saw a totally different horse back at the Curragh last day. Very good time, as Andy has alluded to, and I think the race is going to set up for her. I think she will should be involved, hopefully, and she'd be my main pick in the race. But the other one I'd throw into the mix is the horse that finished third toward last day, Romantic Proposal. Now, she's been beaten quite a bit, but she got absolutely no run. Christy Hayes she probably did the right thing. He was following the favourite in Logo Hunter up the far side and just got into a little bit of bother. And, by the time he sort of had switched more towards the centre of the track, the race was over. We don't know, is she good enough? And her official rating of 104 says she probably isn't good enough, but I think she's a lot better than that actually this year. I think she's improved a hell of a lot. And she's another one where the pace will suit her because she's going to be held up. And I would also say that, the Curragh, the track here at the weekend on the sprint track is going to be opened out to its full weight. I would be expecting a draw bias here to play out. I know they're putting the stalls in the centre of the track, but I would expect to get up the stands rate is going to be fairly important here, and she's 13 of 13. She will need luck, but I'd be quite happy to take my chance. I think she's there 16 or 18-1. So yeah, Munista and Romantic Proposal for me. I know in some ways it is madness to suggest back in an Irish horse in an Irish sprint because the English just come over and win like that. This is the definition of insanity for me because I'm doing this all my life. But I do feel that this year Munista has it on the clock and it's a little bit hidden, and Romantic Proposal has the potential with a trainer who actually has probably been the best trainer of Irish sprinters over the last decade. So yeah, those two will do me.
I couldn't agree more. Just very quickly on Tony's assessment of Romantic Proposal, she's got the kind of cruising speed that you need for a race like this. The only thing that put me off from mentioning her and putting her up was the stalls are in the centre, and if they do go down the middle, then stall 13 definitely becomes an issue. I think Tony's putting a lot of store in the fact that he's hoping they come across towards the stand side. If they do, obviously still 13, he's absolutely where you want to be, and loads of covering in behind the rail. You could see her just cruising in behind the speed. But if they do go down the middle, she could therefore just be left on the flank a little bit with no cover. So a lot depends on what happens probably early on in the day. We've got 2 races to view it and get a feel for it. So, but she's definitely one worth considering if there is a bit of a shift in where the jockeys decide to race.
Yeah, romantic proposal there. 18-1, getting a positive mention from both, as does Muniesta 11-1, as I mentioned with those firms, Paddy's Sportsbook and Unibet. On then to the Moyglare, the fillies Group 1 2-year-old race, where Caird Go Deo, you can tell I've never said that before, 11-4, Homeless Songs 3-1, Agata is 100-30, 17-2, both Discoveries and Sunset Shiraz, 10-1, Prettiest, 16-1, Concert Hall, and then the outsider of the 8, Missing Matron, 66-1. I don't want to sound like but again, dead 8 runners here, Andy, so I'm getting excited again. Over to you for this one.
Yeah, I'm just surprised that the betting there, when you came to this race, immediately I expected you to say Homeless Songs as a relatively short price favourite, and she's chalked up at 3-1. I think collectively that's probably the best maiden of fillies she beat when she won at Leopardstown back in July. Quite clear that being a Moyglare owned horse, she's been saved specifically for this. That doesn't take a genius to work that out. But the turn of foot that she showed that day to run down Agartha, who's subsequently gone on to boost the form in no uncertain times 2 or 3 times over, was quite astonishing. I mean, she was probably the guts of 5 to 6 lengths behind Joseph O'Brien's filly, Turning for Home. And unless my stopwatch is broken, she did the fastest come home time from throughout that day by quite some considerable margin. Now, it was a relatively slowly run race, so she's probably going to have to prove herself to show that kind of level ability on a proper end-to-end gallop and not just rely on a turn of foot. But on pure ability alone and what we saw that day, she looks a filly right at the top drawer. Now, those Frankels could go either way. They obviously they can be a little bit hot, a bit temperamental. One run to the next. Will she, improve the way we think she will, or will she kind of like get a little bit hot-headed on the way down to the start? I think she could go one way or the other, but I don't think there's a better quality filly in this race that I've seen anyway so far this season. And she's got a nice draw as well in stall 1. So obviously they have that little kink in the rail to race around that inside and save a bit of ground and get a bit of cover, I think is important. But I don't know what Tony thinks, but look, she's the best filly I've seen so far this season over in Ireland, in and around that trip.
3-1 Homeless Songs with Paddy's and Betfair Sportsbook and Sporting Index. Tony, what do you make of Homeless Songs?
100% agree. She was by far the most impressive maiden winner of the year. Like that I know she was the fastest last 3 furlongs on the card that evening. I have a couple of worries with her. I just would have preferred to see her have a run between now and then. 66 days off. I just don't love that. And Agartha's kind of just kicked on since that. So we kind of respect that. And also, just about Dermot Weld, for all that he has had the backing of Moyglare throughout his career, he hasn't won this race since 1987. And he's only had 3 runners in it since 2008. So I just find that a little bit strange. You'd think he would have horses for this race, but typically doesn't. But would agree that she was massively impressive. I suppose if you're looking for the solid each way bet, it probably is the horse that won the trial, Agartha. She just seems to do everything right. She took a hell of a long time to win, but while it's Joseph that trains her, she has the sort of hallmarks of a kind of an Aidan O'Brien filly that took a long time to get off the mark, but it's just thriving now and going from strength to strength. You probably might see an even better version of her at the weekend. But it wouldn't be a strong opinion because I was so impressed with Homeless Songs. I was really impressed with Curragh Joe. Also in her win over course and distance. I just don't have a strong opinion on it. Maybe the market will make up my mind and one of them will drift to a big price on Sunday, but not at the moment.
Not at the moment there for Tony. Respect certainly for Homeless Songs and for Agartha. 3-1, 130 the pair. On then to the 405, the penultimate race we're going to be previewing here, the Goffs Vincent O'Brien National Stakes over 7 furlongs, another 2-year-old race. And Point Lonsdale is unsurprisingly the very, very short price favourite, 4-7, best price at the moment with William Hill, 4-9 elsewhere. Native Trail 9-2, Ebro River 7-1, Duke de Sessa 10-1, 33-1. Bar 7 runners here. Heartbreak. Tony, stick with you here. Point Lonsdale, hard to pick any fault, really, isn't there?
Yeah, I'm going to take him on here. I just think he's a little bit short. I think 7 furlongs on what's going to be good to firm ground is definitely on the sharp side for him. He looks like he wants a mile, maybe further again. He's really strong at the finish. I'm going to back down with Weldon, this Duke de Sessa. I think double figures about him is big. Funny enough, he's not a man that likes to run horses in the national stakes either. He very rarely runs horses in this. I'm actually going to take that as a positive because he had the option of running this horse in the Group 2 on Saturday, and he's, as they say, rolling the big dice here, which, to be quite honest, isn't really his modus operandi with 2-year-olds. I think I actually was reading an interview with Dermot Weldon in the Racing Post last Sunday. He sounds like a sort of man that he'd prefer if racing didn't start till 4. I think he just hates this sort of early speed and cheap speed type of stuff, but this Duke de Sessa was the only horse he had entered in this race from a long way out. I thought he was very unlucky in Galway. Just things didn't go his way. Broke a little bit slowly and didn't really handle the bend, and came home flying. That was quite a good race there. And then he's improved so much to win in a really impressive time figure at the Curragh last year. Just cruised through the race. Just looked different lad. And I think that's a big thing with him, that he got an extra run into him. He's not coming into this just off the back of a maiden. And I'd be quite happy taking the 10-1 about him. Native Trail, very impressed with him on debut. Beat the horse that won the ACOM really well. Not as impressed with him at the July meeting. Didn't improve as much. I think he may be another horse that wants a little bit further. And you could argue the horse that finished second probably should have beaten him that day. And Ebro River, I'd say he was quite a fortunate winner of the Phoenix Stakes. He got the rail. And there seemed to be a fair bias that day. I'm not sure he's going to improve for stepping up to 7 either.
So Duke de Sessa, the one there for Tony, 10-1 with Paddy's Betfair Sportsbook and Sporting Index. Andy, how you judging this?
Yeah, I've took me off the ball with regards what prices these horses have been chalked up in midweek. I've just kind of like parachuted into the race now, as it were. I'm quite surprised that Duke de Sessa's 10-1. I don't think he'll be anywhere near that on Sunday. No, obviously, no. Tony's flagged it up. I'm sure one or two of the viewers will get involved with that. But he's a very smart horse, Duke de Sessa. He was well flagged up for that Galway race, and as Tony said, he was just all at sea really around Galway. There's a lot of horses are, but he learnt immeasurably from that first run, and he was a totally different model the next day when he came here. He went through the race like a good horse, quickened up smartly, won in a good time. It wasn't an extravagantly brilliant time, but it was a good number. It was an 85 on our time figures, which is anything over 85 for a juvenile is good. But I mean, it wasn't as good as Point Lonsdale, who we've got a direct comparison to on that day. He clocked a 90 time figure based on our numbers, and if you look at their split times, well, sectionals, it probably tells you how deceptive that Point Lonsdale is. Because from 3 out, Point Lonsdale did 35.8. This is hand time, by the way, my hand time. They're not official. And I got Duke de Sessa running 37.2. So there's a 1.4 seconds difference from 3 out to the line in favour of Point Lonsdale. So you look at him and you think, oh, he looks for all the world he's going to be a mile and a half, mile and a quarter horse next season. But he's got plenty of boot for a 7 furlong horse. And it's interesting that he's actually only raced over 7 furlongs and not beyond, whereas Duke de Sessa looks a bit like, almost like Refused to Bend it, who won this race for Durham. I think it was his last winner many years ago. He almost looks like he's an Irish Derby horse already, doesn't he? So I just think Point Lonsdale might just have too much boot for Duke de Sessa over 7, just based on the numbers, what they did here last time on the same day a few weeks back. That's not to say that Duke de Sessa can't improve, and I think he's probably the bet without the favourite. I think if he's 10-1 in the all-in market, and he's going to be third favourite in the without the favourite market, I'd probably be more inclined to get involved in that project rather than take odds on or short price about Point Lonsdale, because we have got to factor in Ebro River and Native Trail as well. But yeah, I think their course form is going to be quite worth quite a lot in the final analysis. I think that's definitely the bet. Duke de Sessa without the favourite for me.
And our friends after yesterday, our friends at Novibet have come up with it without the favourite market again first up, and they've gone Duke de Sessa 13-4, so just a bit bigger than threes.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, 7-2 thought. Yeah, that's bang on. Yeah, that's a decent shout.
So there you go. Duke de Sessa, keep an eye on that market without Point Lonsdale. Duke de Sessa the way to go for both. Definitely the value, at least for both Andy and for Tony. The final race we're going to be covering here, the 440, is the Irish St Leger. And we've got Twilight Payment is the 3-1 favourite ahead of Sunny Boy Liston 9-2. Baron Samedi is 5-1. Search for a Song 6-1. Master of Reality 10-1. Emperor of the Sun 12-1. Passion 12-1. 18-1 bar. 14 run at the moment, Andy. Give you first run here for the Irish St Leger.
Yeah, huge amount of respect for Twilight Payment. He's just one of those little terriers that just sticks his head down 9 times out of 10 and just gets the job done. And he was absolutely remorseless here last time out. Once he got to the front, he just kept, stoking the coal, grinding out the fractions, and he saw a good field off with a bit to spare, I thought. He could have done with a slightly better draw. I know we're talking about a mile 6 race here, but still 13 or 14. He's an ideal. And the same can be said about Barasamidi as well, who's gone and bagged stall 14. It just makes life a little bit harder running out in the wing in the early part of the race, using up petrol, having to ride a different kind of tactical race than you would ordinarily choose to do from an inside peg, where you can sort of, choose where you want to race. But going back to that race that Twilight Payment won, I made a huge big note of Barrington Court, who went through the race like a really good filly. Like, she is a good filly, but the filly that we saw last year, and similar to a horse talked about early on in the day, Pretty Gorgeous. She always strikes me as being a bit of an autumn filly that just wants a little bit of juice in the ground when the autumn leaves are falling. So the fact that she went to that race back in August off the back of 100-day break, it was almost inevitable for me that she was going to take a heave. And you could almost see it visually happen from the 2 to the 1. She's coming up towards Twilight Payment and the other 2, and then she just blew up. You could see her sort of not quite go on with her effort. But with that run under her belt, and with Jessie probably having this race on her mind from a long way out, because there's not that many races that you could really target a 7-year-old mare at this kind of level. I would think she's probably been trained specifically for the Irish St Leger. That would obviously been a trial last time out. And yeah, like I say, if it rained between now and Sunday, that would definitely enhance the chance. And what, 12-1 we're looking at?
18-1. Barrington Court best price.
God almighty, that's a mythical price. That's almost the standout price of the weekend for me. That 18-1. I think she's way better than that.
That's almost turn off Skype, hang up the call, quit the podcast, get in the car, drive to Paddy's, get your bet on, drive back.
Yeah, that's
and then
almost like
hit
my forehead on my hand kind of price. That.
Right, you've got about an hour of editing time, Andy, to get on, so you should be okay. Barrington Court 18-1 with Paddy Power and Betfair Sportsbook 16-1 with Unibet as well. Of those firms who are up at the moment. Tony, what are your thoughts on the Irish St Leger?
Yeah, really difficult race. Definitely couldn't put you off that mare that Andy's on, but she ties in with a good filly from last year. Tony Munns' horse, Princess Zoe. If it was pushed, I'd probably lean towards Sunny Boy Liston. I think he's still quite on top at this trip. He's only had I'd say he's only really had one proper go at it, and that was in the Ebor that last time, which obviously he won. His run in York prior to that was just a little bit of a slowly run race, which didn't suit. And there is a bit of, decent sized field here with 14 runners. There should be a bit of pace. I also think the cheek pieces are quite important on him. Johnny Motors held them back until this part of the year. They went down in York the last time, got the job done, and you can see why he needs them. Jeez, he's not the easiest ride. Because I think he idles when he hits the front. But I would lean towards him. But no, I think this is quite a difficult race, and there's plenty of other ones you could be given a chance to also.
Sunny Boy Liston there mentioned by Tony, 9-2 with William Hill and Betfred, but no strong view in what looks like a very, very difficult race to solve. Certainly that 18-1 from Barrington Court. No doubts there from Andy about that being the value play in the race. There we go. We've done it. A whistle stop. Very, very impressed with you guys to get all of that knowledge out in about an hour. Both Saturday at Leopardstown and then Sunday at the Curragh. Irish Champions Weekend promises to be an absolute cracker. What a weekend of racing we've got Andy and I sat down together yesterday and went through the Doncaster card on Saturday as well. So if you are watching or listening to this before Saturday afternoon and you want to find out what Andy makes of that day's racing, do go and check it out now. Subscribe to our YouTube channel so you can get all of these previews up there first. You can find these podcasts on any podcast platform as well. Do check out both Tony and Andy's stuff on social media and online. Plenty of tipping stuff up there. All their thoughts, well worth reading for any racing fan. And do, of course, download the oddschecker app too. The best prices, best bookie offers, place terms, free bets, and everything else up on the app. Hopefully enough there to provide some winners. Fingers crossed you enjoy the racing. Most importantly, please make sure you are gambling responsibly, but enjoy what promises to be a cracking weekend's racing.